Urgot, the dreadnought. Urgot always believed he was worthy. As a headsman, an executioner of the weak, he was a living embodiment of the Noxian ideal that strength should rule, making it a reality with every swing of his axe. His pride swelled as the bodies piled ever higher behind him, and his intimidating presence kept countless warbands in line. Even so, a single word was all it took to seal his fate. Sent to distant Zaun to eliminate a supposed conspiracy against the ruler of Noxus, Urgot realized too late, the mission was a setup, removing him from the capital even as the usurper Swain seized control of it. Surrounded by agents of the Chembarans, and enraged that everything he believed was a lie, Urgot was dragged down into the Chemtech mines beneath Zaun. He was defeated. He was enslaved. He was not worthy after all. He endured the mine's hellish conditions in grim silence, waiting for death. In the dredge, death came in many forms. The mine's warden, Baron Voss, would sometimes offer freedom in return for a prisoner's tortured confession, granting it with the edge of her blade. From the screams that echoed through the tunnels, Urgot learned about the wonders of Zaun. There was something special about the city, something marvelous and evident even in the secrets that spilled from slit throats. Urgot didn't know what it was until he was finally brought before Voss, fearing that she would break him. But as the Baron's blade cut into his flesh, Urgot realized that his body was already racked with agony, far beyond anything Voss could inflict. The dredge had made him stronger than he'd ever been as a headsman. Pain was Zaun's secret. His laughter drove Voss back to the surface, and a reign of anarchy began in the depths. Seizing control of the prison, Urgot reveled in new trials of survival. He found the parts of his body that were weakest, and replaced them with scavenged machinery, technology created by those who would die without it, necessity being the mother of pain. The guards could no longer enter the areas Urgot had carved out of Voss' grasp. The prisoners themselves were more afraid of their new master than they were of her. Many even grew to hold a fanatical respect for Urgot, as they were forced to hear his feverish sermons on the nature of power, his grip tightening around the necks of those who would not listen. Only when a Noxian agent arrived in the dredge was Urgot finally forced to confront his own past. Though the spy recognized him and sought his aid in escaping, Urgot beat him mercilessly, and hurled his broken body into the darkness. It was not strength that ruled Noxus, Urgot now realized, but men, and men were weak. There should be no rulers, no lies, nothing to interfere with the pure chaos of survival. Starting a riot that ignited a Chemtech vein within the mine, Urgot shook the city above, and cracked the prison open in an explosion that rivaled the birth of Zaun itself. Many prisoners died, with thousands fleeing into the sump, but the worthy, as ever, survived. From that day, Urgot's reign of terror only grew. A hideous fusion of industrial machinery and Noxian brutality, he slaughtered Chembarans and their lackeys one by one, gathering a following among Zaun's downtrodden masses. He was said to be a new savior, one who would lift the boot of the oppressor from the neck of every common Zaunite. However, his actions did not make such distinctions, as Urgot tested the worthiness of the meek and the powerful alike. To any who found themselves spared in his deadly trials, his message was clear: he was not there to lead, but to survive. If others were worthy, they would survive too. When Urgot finally struck at representatives of the Piltovan merchant clans, the wardens were forced to intervene, hauling him in chains to a fortified prison cell, though this merely seemed to confirm the dreadnought as a legend among the gangers, the sumpsnipes, and the forgotten. For Piltover is not the first to shackle Urgot, and one must wonder if any cage can ever hope to hold him for long. Son of Ur. We were running through the streets of Zaun. The pipes and stained glass were blurred, smeared colors against the gray, and the fog that hung in every chem-soaked alley. Zori was to my left, all matted hair and rusty knives. Her smile was the only sign that she was beautiful beneath the grime. Blank was behind her, with a spray filter full of glowing paint and a head dripping with ideas. Scuzz brought up the rear, every bit the kind of lug you'd expect to be called Scuzz. But he was our Scuzz, every scuzzy bit of him. He yelled our gang's name into the billowing smoke, marking the night as ours. Sump Riders. We laughed, and yelled it too. We were young, we were alive. Nothing could stop us. It would have to catch us first, and we were still running. The city itself seemed to carry us forward as we slid down into its depths, farther and farther from the scrapper we'd just robbed and left bleeding in the gutter. His cogs still jangled in our pockets. More than enough for a bit of fun. We were on our way to the Black Lanes, the market at the heart of Zon. Think they'll sell us any shimmer wine? Zori asked. Bleedin', that sumper made me a mite parched. Blank scoffed. They'd sell shimmer to a child in the lanes. And then they'd sell the child. Gob it, both of you, Skuzz growled, catching up. His face showed a kind of concern that I'd never seen before, a frown slowly forming. Can't you hear that? I squinted my eyes and peered into the night. Since you can't squint with ears, you can. Not without a few augments. I can't hear nothin', I said with a shrug. Not even a plague rat's brown cough. That's what I mean, Skuzz muttered. And the silence after. It weighed heavier even than Piltover, glittering above us. Pushing slowly into the market through the fog, we found dramcarts overturned, their wheels spinning lazily. Stalls abandoned, still full of exotic wares. There was a stench in the air that reminded me of the scrapper, a stench strong enough to make my eyes water, when even seeing him bleed had not. And there were bodies here too. Many of them were wearing a Kembaran's emblem. They'd been torn to pieces, the cobbles red beneath them. It was a massacre. Nasty bit of work. Blank grinned, rooting through one of the dead men's pockets, carefully picking away giblets of flesh. Guess that means we're gettin' a discount. Zori only shuddered. There's someone, in there, she whispered, pointing into a cloud of raw chemtech that was spewing from a pipe in the clearing beyond. It was the source of the stench that was only growing stronger, crushing my senses, somehow making my ears hum. It's a man. That's not a man, I murmured, following her gaze into the growing green veil. Not anymore. It was a hulking shape, with mechanical legs and many guns, fused savagely to its flesh the way a mechanician would fuse two pipes. Burning and searing. Just looking at it made me wince. In one hand, it held a much smaller figure aloft. A man, choking in the chemtech cloud. As he writhed, the monster taunted him, its voice a mechanical buzz vibrating deep in my gut, threatening to loose the bowels within. This is what you want, it almost cooed, cruelly forcing the man's face into a rent in the pipe, the chemtech gas gushing out around them. Breathe it. Make it yours. But the man only writhed, kicking uselessly, growing weaker and weaker, until finally, only his augmented arms still jittered, echoing his last, desperate thoughts. Even after they ceased. And with that flash of brass, it hit me. The dangling corpse, he was a Kembaran, the only kind of person who could afford newfangled kit. Baron Crimson, or some such. These were his men, scattered around us. And now? We have to get out of here, I gasped, turning from the carnage to my friends behind me. But I couldn't see them. The gas from the pipe, it was spreading, a toxic green cloud making it harder to breathe. Harder to run. We had to run. I could hear Zori, Blank and Skuzz panicking and coughing somewhere nearby. I reached out into the swirl for anyone, anything, to pull along with me as I made my escape. But there was only the sound of a body slumping softly to the ground, a spray filter rattling across the cobbles. Blank. I stumbled as the truth hit me. He was gone. And the worst was still to come. The monster pushed itself through the cloud, a massive, armored leg slamming down beside me, and then another, and another, all revealed chemtech-filled tubing, and protruding gun muzzles that smoked with the very same heat still smoldering in the bodies around us. I could taste it at the back of my throat, a truth as bitter as the acrid air. I was going to die here. The monster grabbed me by my ragged scruff, lifting me close enough to see its face. It was a visage of terror, all the more horrifying because it was human. More human than the rest of him, at least. His tox mask glowed as it vented pure alchemy, but his eyes were somehow even brighter. Intelligent. Almost seeming to smile as they took my fear in. A son of Zon. What is your name? He growled as he brought me closer. His accent was sharp, but I couldn't place it. His words battered my resolve, each one hitting with the force of his hate. I couldn't even stammer an answer. He laughed. The Baron, you recognize him? Like many, he tried to rule this city, casting countless people into the depths. To mine this, he breathed in deeply as the gases swirled. This misery. Now he is no more, killed by that which gave him power over others. It is you, the gutter rat, at home in the squalor, who survives. So, tell me, which of you is stronger? Which of you deserves to live? Suddenly, I was falling back to the ground, landing on top of my friends. They were shuddering, choking as the Kembaran had. Skuz, his mouth was foaming. And Zori. I closed my eyes against the tears before I could see what had happened to her. Run, the monster said. Tell the city how you survived and a Baron did not. You will be my witness. The first of many. I hesitated. Run, he bellowed. I saw Zori then, sobbing, reaching out for help with the last of her strength. I didn't want this to be the way I would remember her. I wanted to remember her smile. I still do. But I was running again, through the streets of Zon. And can you imagine how it felt to realize, with burning lungs and heaving breaths, that my screams were the message I was to bear? I was alive. My friends were not. I was worthy.
Thanks for watching. Keep enjoying our videos. Like and subscribe.